Well, hello, welcome to this lesson. We are going to be talking about comparing and ordering integers on a number line. So we'll jump right into it. First of all, we need to know what integers are. Integers are numbers that are whole numbers. Here's 0 on a number line. Integers are whole numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. As well as the negative numbers, negative 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to infinity this way and infinity that way, okay? So that's what integers are. They're basically whole numbers, including negative numbers. And we don't include fractions or decimals in that group called integers. So integers are the positive and the negative numbers, okay? So that's what we're working with on this week's work. And we're learning how to compare and order those on a number line. So let's just take a number line and see if we can do some comparing, okay? So this has the arrows on both sides, okay? The number that's got 0 in the middle. You can see negative numbers go this way, positive numbers go this way, all right? So the first thing you want to look at is how do you find -4 on a number line? Well, you're going to see where 0 is, and if you count over 4 this way, you get to -4. Notice the numbers get larger going this way on this side, and they get larger going this way on the other side. We can find the opposite number by going the same distance from 0 on the opposite side of the number line, on the opposite side of 0. So the same distance from 0 on the other side of 0. This is 4 units away from 0 on the negative side. So we would go 4 units away from 0 on the positive side, and that would be the opposite number. So a +4 is the opposite of a -4. And how we define that is the same distance from 0 on the opposite side of the number line. Okay, so that's what makes something opposite. So if I said, here's 8 on a number line, find the opposite of 8, you would find -8 over here because it's the same distance from 0 on the opposite side of the number line. So that's what makes something an opposite number, okay? So let's use an example of someone running. Tiana runs 3 miles, and she talks about she records how long it's going to take to complete the run. So she records the change in time from the previous week. Okay, so let's get some information. So let's say last week her time decreased by 2 minutes. This is how we would write an integer saying decreased by 2 minutes. So if you had a word sentence that said, that she had run and her time decreased by 2 minutes, this is how you'd write that as an integer, okay? So whenever it asks you to write something as an integer, it just wants you to write the number that represents. That's what the word integer means. Well, what if this week she spent her time running and increased it by 1 minute? What integer would you use to say she increased her time by 1 minute? Well, you'd say increased by 1, right? Or if you're just writing an integer, you might just write a 1 because it increased by 1. So what would be the opposite of increasing by 1 minute? You would decrease it by 1 minute. And how would you write that as an integer? Like this. Okay, so these are all kind of vocabulary words, basically. We're talking about opposite numbers. We're talking about what it means to decrease and what it means to increase. Okay. What if you had a bank account, and let's say the bank account had some transactions, and it said something like this. Here's the transactions. -$15, -$15, $10, -$4, and $15. These would be transactions to a bank account. What does it mean if we have -$4? We're not talking, these are transactions. So we're not talking about how much is in the bank. We're talking about transactions. A transaction of minus $4 or negative $4 would mean that the bank account went down by $4. So we're not sure how much it started out as, but it went down by $4. That's what a transaction of negative $4 or minus $4 represents. We wouldn't call it negative if we were talking about a transaction in a bank account, even though that's what it looks like. We would say it was minus $4, or the bank account went down by $4, or we would probably use the word withdrew. They withdrew $4, or a withdrawal of $4. Which two things are opposites in here? If you said negative $15 and $15 were opposites, you would be right, because they would be the same distance from 0 on a number line. Negative, here would be 0, and then negative 15 would be over here somewhere, and positive 15 would be over here. Those would be opposites. And isn't it true? If you took $15 out of the bank and then put $15 in, you'd end up right where you started, right? Those are opposite numbers. What if you had a question like this? What if I said there are two integers that are opposites of each other, and one integer is 3 units to the right of 1 on the number line? Okay, so if I said 3 units to the right of 1. So there's two integers that are opposites of each other. And one of those is 3 units to the right of 1. How would we figure out what it is? Well, let's start with 3 units to the right of 1. Here's 1. 3 units to the right of 1, 1, 2, 3, is 4. That means one of the integers is 4. And what's the opposite of 4? Because it says two integers are the opposite, negative 4. So these two are opposite numbers. And that's what you would find what the two numbers are, 4 and negative 4. Okay, so that's a little bit about how integers work. Now let's talk about another way we can look at things. What if we looked at temperatures? You can do number lines this way. Okay, here's the arrow, and there's another arrow on the bottom, but we'll do it like this. You can do temperatures like this. You can talk about temperatures on 4 mornings. Maybe the first morning it's negative 8 degrees Fahrenheit, and then it's negative 2 degrees Fahrenheit, and then it's negative 11 degrees Fahrenheit, and then 0 degrees Fahrenheit. How would we graph these numbers on a number line? Well, let's start with 0. Excuse me. All these numbers are going to be below 0, so I'm going to put 0 up here. Okay, that way we can graph them on here. How would we graph these? Should we go every 1? Why don't we just go every 1 and go all the way up to past 10? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whoops, negative 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, negative 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, negative 15. Okay, let's do that. Now, how do we graph these numbers? Where would negative 8 be? Well, if 5 is here, 5, 6, 7, 8 would be right here. This is going to be negative 8 degrees. Okay? And negative 2, 1, 2, right here. Okay? And negative 11 is going to be down here. And 0 right here. That is how we would graph these 4 temperatures on a number line. Now, which one is coldest? If you're thinking of a thermometer, you would know that negative 11 would be the coldest temperature. But look, if you turned this over and it was a number line horizontally, right? The number line was going this way, 0's here, and then the positive numbers would be over here. You can see that the number that's the farthest to the left is actually the smallest number. So it's the coldest here, even though it says -11, but when you're in those negative numbers, in outside, you know, when the temperature is in the negative numbers, it's getting colder and colder the higher the negative numbers get, right? So that's how that works. So on a number line, anything to the left, it gets smaller that way and larger this way. So that means 0 degrees would be warmer than -11. Okay, that's how that works. The last thing that I want to talk about is absolute value and magnitude. Okay, so if we're talking about negative numbers, it's important to understand what absolute value means, because it comes in handy at certain times. The absolute value of a number is the number, let me write it like this. The absolute value of a number is going to be the number without the negative sign. So, and how we write absolute value is with 2 lines around it like this, okay? So if you ever see those 2 lines like that, that means absolute value. And the absolute value of a number is basically its distance from 0 on a number line is what it is. So 4 is here, the number 4. And its opposite is -4. If we wanted to find the absolute value of -4 like this, these 2 lines mean absolute value. The absolute value of -4 is its distance from 0 on the number line. And it is 1, 2, 3, 4 away from 0 on the number line. So the absolute value of -4 is 4. But the interesting thing is the absolute value of 4, positive 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, is also 4. So a good way to look at it is it's the number, when you're looking at absolute value, is it's that number without the negative sign. But the meaning of absolute value is its distance from 0 on the number line. And this will become important later on. But in the meantime, what if I said, what is the value, the absolute value of -1? Well, the absolute value of -1 is 1. What's the absolute value of 6? The absolute value of 6 is 6 itself. What's the absolute value of -3? The absolute value of -3 is 3. Okay? And then there's another word we learned. So that's absolute value, and the other word is magnitude, which is another way to say absolute value and magnitude mean the same thing. Okay? But what magnitude means is a number without its sign, with its sign dropped. So if the magnitude of -3 is 3. Absolute value and magnitude are the same thing. You'll see both of those words on the homework. Okay? The reason we would use absolute value is a great example is baseball cards. Okay, so if you have a baseball card and the value of that baseball card is like, say we don't know the value of it, but the value of the baseball card went down by $13 this last year. Okay, so the value of it went down, decreased by $13. You would write it like this. Does that mean the value of the card is -$13? No. You can't have the value of a baseball card be negative something, right? It's at least worth the paper it's printed on, right? So it wouldn't be worth -$13. But you would use the absolute value to say that it went down $13. So say it was, the baseball card was worth $50. Something like this on a number line, right? The baseball card was worth 50. And so it went down 13. So you'd count down the number line. right? Can't fit them all in there. You count down 13 and be somewhere here, right? So it went down in price. If it costs $50 to begin with, then it would go down $13 in price. So the magnitude is that distance. That distance it went down, which is 13. That's the magnitude of that number, or the absolute value of that number. And we use magnitude and absolute value in math all the time, because it's when we're not really talking about it as a negative number, we're talking about it as the magnitude of that. It went down 13 in the price. Okay, so hopefully that's a good introduction into integers and magnitude and absolute value, and I hope to see you soon in the next video.